Oh, great, okay. Where's the camcorder?
But that's it. So it's only you and me because I haven't got the camcorder.
Oh,
SIM
I
card
see, yes, I
sorted.
wasn't quite that was there. Super.
So if you can just make sure that people know that we are recording.
Oh, thank you. So, are we waiting for the bell?
It's turned 7 by my computer, so good for you to
Yeah,
start if you
fantastic.
want to.
So, thank you on then. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Planning and Highways for November 2021. We are now open for public consultation. Is there anyone who would like to speak? Charlotte.
Okay, talk to everybody. And if I stand there, then you have to turn around.
Okay.
Thank you very much for putting more reports on the agenda, and thank you, Claire, as well for doing that, because it's something that is very, very important. I just want to have a very, very quick chat about it first, because I hope that we might be able to answer any questions that you might have when it comes to that bit. But I thought that we could hopefully have a quick slot now as well. We were going to pitch an idea to you this week for a sort of damage limitation, but on very good advice from Councillor Cotter and Councillor Chippins, we're withdrawing that for the time being, and a conversation we've had as well. And I think that might actually end up being discussed at a later date, but we thought it was probably very important now, before you reach your conclusions, to give you a tiny little bit of background information about the site. So Enmore Court was built to replace an existing dwelling on a rocky outcrop, and the developer didn't have any problems building it until there was a tiny, tiny section of the development when he hit running greensand. And the only way that he could stabilise it was to pile tons and tons and tons of concrete down 100 and 150 feet. We're only talking about a tiny area. And he would come back the next day and it had moved. And he would try again and again, and it had moved again and again. An example of this is obviously the flyover, where it's only actually a small section. So we are questioning the viability of the dwellings on 4 acres of land when this tiny area, which the developer hit a problem of just these 3 houses, caused him the biggest nightmare. And I know the Merricks were there to witness all of that, and a despairing developer every single time. So there has been a lack of, there's been no, as part of UU, there's been no viability statement. So do they really know whether this land is actually viable? There's been no ecological report, and there's been no structural survey. So to the best of our knowledge, the proposed developer hasn't actually done anything. The sort of information that we would think that the town council would be looking at. Now, because this is the slopes and so sensitive, we hope that our town council really will fight the good fight against Dorset Council and just keep on and on and on at them until hopefully we as a town will be able to come to a compromise, or no, it's just not going to happen unless they can come up with all the evidence that we as a town need for you to put towards the council. Thank you.
Okay.
Can I just add?
Sure.
My sort of angle on this is regarding the ecology of the field. I want to reiterate how damaging the development will be to the biodiversity of the area. We rented this field from Robert Audrey for some 14 years. And during this time, we grazed our sheep. As much as we'd have loved to have some cattle, the land was too wet to support them, literally. During this period, we noted distinct and varied forms of wildlife, including hundreds of rabbits providing food for weasels, stoats, and foxes, as well as buzzards. On occasion, we spotted grass snake and slowworms. There is an abundance of frogs and newts. Badgers come and go, and we have had on innumerable occasions hedgehogs setting up shop in the stables. Every year as well, swallows nest in the stables. As to say that there is no evidence of any birds nesting is totally incorrect. In the ancient hedgerows, there is an abundance of nesting birds, and in the trees, ideal habitat for bats, and in the ivy, more nesting birds. We always considered ourselves so privileged to have this space. Although it is surrounded on two sides by busy roads and away to the third, this has actually aided the proliferation of wildlife. A bit like the central reservations and verges on motorways, which attract all sorts of vegetation and small mammals, as these areas remain relatively undisturbed. We have departed Enmore Court, and the field has been left to effectively rewild, and it has been left ungrazed. Imagine now if additional wildlife and plants have moved in. There are already small oaks appearing. It makes me sad to think that all this will be destroyed when development takes place, and this special habitat is lost for good.
Thanks, Nick. Thank you. Anyone else who'd like to speak this evening? Michelle.
I've got a bit of an issue about grit bins at the moment. I've got a couple of photographs here of
Grit bins,
yeah. I'm not sure if it's highways or if it's or one person says that Dorset County Council are responsible for replacing them, and then I thought that our town council was responsible. I have two conflicting things, but there's two there that are in desperate need of replacing, and obviously I leave you with that.
Would you like
And there's some that really need topping up before the winter sets in.
Okay, Michelle, hang on 2 seconds. Claire's going to respond.
So just to confirm, both answers you were given are potentially correct, because there are the strategic grit bins which highways are responsible for, and then there are community grit bins which the town council buys to supplement the existing route. At the start of the autumn winter season, Dorset Council will go around and fill up any bins that need filling up, and then if on the community bins there's additional fills needed through the winter, then we pay for that, and on the strategic ones highways do. So both answers were correct. I will have a look at those two that you've provided to me. We have some spare bins in our store, so we can easily get those replaced if they're the ones that we're responsible for. No problems at all.
Thank you.
Bernard.
Could I start late from the beginning, but
You haven't listened.
Enmore Court?
No.
I echo the sentence about land being inherently unsuitable for development. The British Geological Society memoir, bulletin, and map shows this area as being subject to slippage. The upper part of the site, or this, which in fact this part of the site is being built on, is being built on for very good reason. It's actually on the green stand, as you said. But in addition, such land is subject to waterlogging. It's clay soil slipping down the slope, which has in geological time slipped. But the soils are described as, the top layers are described as solid soils. That means waterlogged soils, which tend to migrate down the slope. So the practical issues with regard to building on that site, I think, are quite overriding, and I think the point I echo is inherently unsuitable from the physiological point of view to develop.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bernard. Anybody else have anything to say?
I'd like to, but I think I'd like to other people to go first.
Okay.
No.
All yours, Rich.
Chair, I'm going to take, if you wouldn't mind, and project, so you can all hear me. My main concern tonight is item 6, and I wonder whether, I can't gather much information from the agenda papers. I wonder whether the clerk could perhaps be a bit clearer about what exactly desilting and clearing blockages means, if it means that Bimport is to be closed as far as St John's Hill for a week. Because of course that road has a hospital, it has a care home, and it has a lot of old people living there, including my dear old mum, and there's constant ambulances, carers, traffic all the time. So I'm very concerned about it on a personal level. Maybe Claire, however, can assure me that there will be no impediment whatsoever to ambulances, carers, and such.
You want me to respond at this point?
Please do, if you have information on it.
All I can tell you is what's been included in the papers. Dorset Council has sent through this road closure notice in the same way as they send any others. The difference with this one is it has come through significantly far in advance, and they have specifically requested that this council lets them know if this is going to cause any problem. So I can't give any assurances either which way, because we've only got the information in the papers that Dorset Council provided to us.
Chairman, the desilting and what's the word, clearing blockages sounds like a drainage issue.
Sounds like gullies, doesn't it, really?
Yeah, and in which case I don't quite understand why the whole road needs to be closed. And I would question, through the council, I would question Dorset Highways on this.
Yep.
Because, you know, you can't stop ambulances going, you can't stop doctors, nurses, you can't stop people going to care homes. I've got to get my mum to hospital appointments, etc., etc. The problems are obvious.
Yeah.
So I hope you will highlight those loud and clear, please, to the relevant authority who appears to be Dorset Highways. Okay, now I would like, please, through you, Chair, to talk a little bit about the Christie's Lane fiasco. Through you, Chair, can Claire please, the clerk, please be clear with me and with everyone when exactly the Nick Ellis tree report went to Dorset Highways and who exactly that report went to, please?
I gave this response last Tuesday at the full council meeting. It went the day that I received it, with an hour of receiving it, and it went to the officer who was chasing it, which from memory was Andy Beale, but I can't, you know, I'm going by my memory.
Andy Beale is the tree officer in relation
Does the committee want me to look up the specific date and time that email was sent?
If you could, and we can nail it once and for all.
You seem to give me the impression, or you seem to give everyone the impression last time, Claire, that it was Monday, the 11th of October.
That rings a bell, but I will look
That is
it.
what she said.
And knowing who it went to is important, and I'll tell you why, because what must have been 8 days later, more than a week later, in this very building, in that room, there was a Dorset Highways workshop attended by more than, say, roughly 30 members of the public, who came up with some 24 issues. I mean, it is extraordinary how many problems there are in this town, apparently involving Dorset Highways. I mean, there were issues in every single town, every single road you could think of in this town. I've actually got a list here, but I would suggest, as a side, that this town council ought to post up that list somewhere on its website so that people in the town can know that the problems have been made aware of, and indeed ask for what is going to happen, because it looked like most of the time the 3 highways officers who were there were saying, well, we'll look into this, we'll look into that, but no action, or very little action that I could see, was actually made. The main point of raising that particular issue, and I see Tim is about to intervene, is the fact that none of those officers, not one of them, had any idea that the Nick Ellis report existed. So more than a week after they are alleged to have received that report, none of them knew anything about it. We now have a situation where you're all aware trees have been taken down. Little, as far as I'm concerned, quite cynically have done this, and the ins and outs of that situation, Bernie and I will address in some detail, because it's pretty short of scandalous, frankly, what went on. And not surprising, given the way a lot of big developers behave these days.
Is there anything else?
I lodged that one. Can I just ask a question for information through you, Chair, to the clerk? On your website for this meeting, you've got reference to a so-called high-level report produced by the Dorset planning consultant. Would that consultant be Joe Witherden? And if so, why was no name attached to that with a date? It's normal to put a name and a date to a report. Why was that report asked for? I don't understand. You're discussing the barrister's report tonight, which I think is way superior to the report from the so-called Dorset planning consultant. So could I please be told who was the planning consultant and why was that piece of paper attached to tonight's agenda? Because
let me respond. So
Yeah.
First of all, the report, I asked for that report from Joe Witherden, who was the planning consultant that was hired to advise and help the Neighbourhood Plan Advisory Committee when we were putting the neighbourhood plan together. And she has a lot of experience at getting neighbourhood plans through the whole system and to be made by Dorset Council. So based on her experience, she was hired, and extremely calm and helpful and lucid and logical she was too. She was excellent to work with. I thought it would be helpful because the thing is, and we are going to be talking about Enmore Court at length. So I'm just going to say, I mean, I've got 5 different points that have come out of the barrister's report, different things we need to do, different angles we need to look at. And one of the things we discussed was beefing up the neighbourhood plan. So naturally and quite logically, Richard, I asked the planning consultant who had advised us what her view was on the barrister's report and whether or not she thought we could beef up the neighbourhood plan, how long the process would take, etc. And further, from a point of view of transparency, I asked for her words to be attached to this agenda so that you could all see it.
I'm
Okay.
simply asking for the fact, Chair, that's all.
Yes, it's just the tone of voice in which you ask for it. You're always suspecting that there's some skullduggery beneath it, or we're trying to obfuscate.
I may ask in the right manner, but that's my manner. I'm sorry for that, but there we are. One final question, still don't see another one, please, Chair. And that is, can please again through you, the clerk, confirm who exactly is the promulgator of the so-called resident survey that's been posted to everyone in the town about the Market Square?
No, you can't, because that's not on this agenda and that's not for this meeting.
Well, you could if you wanted to be helpful, Chair.
Oh, come on, Richard.
Yes, come on, indeed.
No. Have you looked at this agenda? Have you looked at how much we have to get through? I am not doing it in this meeting.
You could just give
No,
your name.
you are muckraking, and I'm not. I absolutely.
That is a pretty wrong thing for you to say.
Well, I'm
You have
very
no
sorry you
idea what
object.
my motives are, Chair. You have no idea what my motives are.
On the
So do
contrary.
not accuse me of muckraking. I would like facts. Facts are the most important thing you start off with, and then you come to a conclusion. So you, or not, should ask a lot more questions than sometimes you do.
Marvellous.
You will.
Well, that's because we don't have your investigative zeal, Richard, and I
Look,
too expressed myself in a forthright manner, and that's just the way I am.
Excellent. I love forthright.
Good.
We get on well.
We're not, well, get on marvellously, Richard, but we're not discussing it in this meeting. It's not on the agenda. It's not something that
Right.
this
I'll ask through the
committee has anything to do
clerk.
with.
I'll ask through the clerk. Thank you.
Super. Is there anyone else? Bernard, how are we doing on time?
I
It's 17 minutes past.
Send a set of drawings through.
You did, and I have them here, and very excellent they are too.
On Christmas Lane.
Yeah.
Yet again, the ongoing saga. I don't know if they're scanned to the extent that they can be shown on the
Yeah,
screen.
I can do that now.
Yeah, super.
Just give me 1 moment to pull them up.
Chairman, should we expect that we might speak when we get to that item?
We could do, yes.
I think it would be useful if we could.
No, that's probably a good idea. That's probably a good idea. Thank you, Phil. Yes. So Bernard, do you mind? We're going to ask you to speak when we get to, because we're going to discuss Christie's Lane trees in more depth.
I'm very happy. with
Is that
that.
okay?
The plans are really to, if you like, contribute to that discussion, if I can make my points there.
Of course.
Yes. I've got 2, if not 3 other questions relating, funny enough, to developments or projects within the conservation area. Morrison's building currently being painted, should we say, black and white. It being within the conservation area, it did need planning permission, because it got planning permission, scoring certain comment. The external walls being painted.
Well, it's not a listed building, and as it's not a listed building, it doesn't require listed building consent. I don't think it does, but I'm happy to check that.
No, it wouldn't be listed. It's a question of whether they need planning permission for the use of certain colours.
Yeah, but then equally that one could say that of the Tourist Information Office. The entrance to Bell Street is striking, to say the least. Karen.
I really think that they should have asked for permission.
Why?
Because it is in the context that, like, for example, shop signs, everything, come to Canning Highway. They're different, are they?
Yeah.
Conservation area has three things.
Yeah.
The council must have a policy for the area. You can't cut trees down, and you have to. It's only three things. It's a painting thing.
Yeah.
There's something you actually have some freedom.
Yeah. I mean, to be quite honest with you, I mean, I take your point. I've had a lot of complaints about the Tourist Information Office, and there's nothing I can do about that. Personally, I love the fact that they've painted it black. It looks so much smarter than the way it did before, when it was just looked absolutely grim. So,
I think it's improved.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
The second one is in relation to the work completed in the hospital grounds. The planning drawing which is displayed in the entrance to the hospital shows the walls to be constructed to be masonry walls.
Oh,
the walls
okay.
in reality are red engineering bricks.
Yeah.
Under steps of change, which has been supported by the conservation officer. Imagine that is of interest within the conservation area. So it's a question really. I've noticed it, several other people, together with the rather exuberant normal highway, no entry signs along Abbey Walk, which seems to be something that we owe to in the conservation area. Thirdly, and forgive me, I forgot the name of the place. The bar and drinking establishment opposite the Italian restaurant.
Yeah.
I remember several months ago the new proprietors renting and establishing business. They wanted to. They energetically pleaded for your support and stated that they would not be serving drinks other than with meals. And I noticed now that there's happy time, happy hours. I noticed that there is drinking during the day. So has the license been changed? Because the lady was quite assertive of the fact that they were reinventing themselves to avoid problems of the past.
Okay, so you wanted to check the license, Bernard?
Yes, I mean, I know probably I could, but it's just something again that wanted.
Okay. Great. Well, our 20 minutes are up. Hopefully everyone has spoken who wants to speak, and we will crack on. So, yes, we have apologies, don't we?
We have apologies from Councillor Chase. He's been pinged for a PCR test, so he's keeping his distance until he's got that one back.
Okay.
Everyone else is present.
Great. Any declarations of interest?
None that I've been made aware of.
We need to accept the apologies. Proposed, seconded, thank you, all in favour?
Unanimous.
Thank you. Thank you for reminding me. Minutes. Can we agree the minutes of the 5th? Yeah,
Okay.
seconded, lovely. Approved, yeah, all in favour? Unanimous. Right. Yes. So, Enmore Court is the first thing on the agenda. Now, I'm just kind of wondering.
Oh, sorry, we've got officer report to committee just to receive a note at item
Sorry,
4.
I've got this the wrong way around. What's happened here? I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Right, let's reorganise that.
I've got it on screen here, if that helps you.
Right, officer report. Sorry, everybody. Officer reports. Yes, not going to be left off that lightly, Phil. Okay. I think the first thing I'd like to do, actually, because David, there you are, lovely. Now, we were discussing amongst Planning and Highways Committee members about Diarmuid Hollow, and we thought it'd be a good idea. Claire attended their parish council meeting on September the 24th because no officers were available. So
No
thank you.
councillors.
No councillors were available. So thank you for that, Claire. But we thought it would be better to hear from David, and he has very kindly, David Webber of Melbury and Cann Parish Council, he's very kindly come along this evening. So is it okay to?
Yes,
ask David
I
now?
would say, Chair, it's your prerogative. You can invite David up to speak and fill you in on that meeting.
Lovely. David, what's happening?
As Claire did a very good report, I think. You should hear her notes first.
Well, my notes are.
Come and sit, David, and then you can.
So the remit for me was to sit and listen. The meeting was in response to a podcast piece that Simon Hoare had done with This Is Alfred, and it had ruffled a few feathers, I think is fair to say, and had prompted the meeting to be called. So I sat and listened. The meeting was very well attended. And David, I'm not just saying this because you're present. You did an excellent job chairing and working your way around the room to make sure that everyone had an opportunity to say what they needed to say.
And Simon Hoare was there.
And Simon Hoare was there to respond to any questions. He made great pains at the start of the meeting to stress that he has no particular leaning towards one solution over another, that he was just airing them as he saw them and knew them to be. But there was nonetheless very obvious strong views within there, not least the protection of the hollow and the banks. There was a beautiful surprise, I think you'll agree, David, in the room, of an experienced, I'm going to call him a seismologist. He's experienced with dealing with, or maybe it's a volcanologist, seismologist.
Yeah.
But he has offered his expertise, and I believe has followed that up with Simon Hoare as well, to understand the impact of the vibrations of traffic coming through the hollow on the banks and the impact of removing trees and their network of root system versus the more engineered solution that Dorset Council were looking at. I think it's, as far as my observations, that's the extent of how the meeting went, other than that it was very well constructed. But David, you have followed up since then, so you might want to update the committee further.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank Simon Hoare. He said he'd give us 1 hour, and he gave us 2 hours and about 15 minutes. So he started at 7:30. He said, I've got to be out of here by 8:30. And we finished the meeting formally at 20 to 10. And then he got interviewed by local radio, and other people had a chat with him as well. So very good value for money, I would say. So no complaints in that respect whatsoever. We are following it up, obviously. We will hope to do a seismology report on the hollow, and just around the corner, an area known as Church Bank, where the squeeze point is. If anything, that is more serious from the point of view of Melbury, because if you go up onto the top of Church Bank, where St Thomas Church is, it is literally about 10 feet at the nearest point from a very steep bank, and it's something like 70 to 80 feet higher than the road. It really is. You get up, you look all the way down and think, my goodness gracious me, that's a long way down. So we're very concerned about that, especially as the seismologist said, look, the vibration from the lorries over a period of time will trigger a landslip. No ifs, no buts. And especially if the trees are taken out, as they are. Even if not, he says lorries should not be using those roads.
Yeah.
So if they continue to use the roads, and therefore they have to move the road over from Church Bank, then you're going to have to take out the cemetery. We've looked into it in that respect. If you buy a plot, it's yours for 100 years. So anybody who's had any relatives buried there less than 100 years, they'd have to give permission before the relatives can be dug up. And of course, also Commonwealth war graves are in that cemetery as well. So we are naturally quite concerned. And what will it achieve at the end of the day? Very little, because yeah, you could knock most of the houses down in Melbury Abbas. Most of them are, you know, grade 2 listed, etc. Not all, obviously. There are 1 or 2 modern bungalows there. And then the lorries are still going to climb a 1 in 6 hill. So you get rid of all the trees and you've still got a very steep hill to climb. It's silly. If you go to COP26, which is current as of today, what's the most important things? One, preserve the trees, plant more trees, but definitely preserve the existing trees. And secondly, reduce energy consumption. Loads starting from a low speed going up a 1 in 6 hill devour a lot of energy, whether it's petrol, diesel, hydrogen or electric. It's a lot of energy to shift any load up a 1 in 6 hill. Crazy, in our opinion. And if they don't build a decent bypass with a gentle slope up, then coming northbound in our other parish at Cam, we've got quite a steep hill, and lorries climb up there very slowly and often jam up. And that's with today's lorries, let alone the larger lorries that they are going to bring in shortly. Because although it's a one-way system for HGVs, it's still a two-way system from all other traffic, and a large lorry coming up could well meet a bus coming down. Certainly in recent times, I've been caught in queues taking 5 or 10 minutes to climb the hill up through Cam.
Yeah.
You know, where it all jams up solid. So they're achieving nothing, and they're not, you know, Dorset Council claim to be climate, ecology and all the rest of it. Really?
Yeah.
You know, so we are instigating a detailed Darwin ecology report for next year.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's a bit late for this year to get an accurate number of bats, etc. But they're pretty sure there are quite rare bats in some of the trees. The trees are pretty ancient trees, and if you look a couple of weeks ago on the Country File, they had quite a big article about trees and how older trees kind of interlink with one another so that they can help one another through their underground root network to protect one another. Well, that doesn't apply when you get new trees. It takes 20 or 30 years for that network to get going. The network is fully established there, and they want to completely clear that.
And that is every road done into Shaftesbury is a hollow way.
Yeah.
At some point.
Yeah.
And that hollow way at Dynes Hollow has been there for 1,000, 2,000 years on. It's far too important for Dorset Council to just wreck it. And I don't know whether you saw the original presentation, not this year, but about 5 years ago or so.
Phil, can you turn your mic on to make sure people can hear you? Thank you.
About 5 years ago, Dorset Council gave a presentation to councillors about Dynes Hollow. And the cross section they showed banks 15 and 10 metres high. When the road was closed, again, about 4 or 5 years ago, I walked through the hollow, and the highest bank is 6 metres. So it's a complete lie about the danger, because a 6 metre bank isn't going to cause the destruction that the 15 metre bank caused at Bedminster Tunnel. And therefore, the councillors were given the wrong information. And I think that, it's criminal.
So Phil, it's actually a receive a note section of the meeting. So, but thank you. Yes, but if we all decide that it should be an agenda item, then we could discuss it more deeply in future. But so David, was there anything else? So you're going to, so we got to Darwin Ecology are going to do a detailed report.
Yeah. We're probably going to do a detailed report, providing we get the owner's permission next year sometime up to the rest of Melbury.
Right.
To do seismology reports as well. And then we aim in the next couple of years, if we can, to do a seismology report for the A350 up through Cam.
Fantastic.
Because some of those houses there are right on the side of the road.
And what is, do you know what Dorset Council's timeline is for their proposed works? Are you up against a deadline?
We appear to be up against a deadline, but it's an ever-shifting thing. We've been told that they own one side of the bank, then we're told they don't own one side of the bank. They definitely don't own the other side of the bank. So, you know, the two sides. One side we know for sure is still owned by the original owners, and they are not giving permission for any trees for theirs to be cut down. Obviously, if Dorset Council do come in with a compulsory purchase order, then that would take some time to proceed through because they would fight it. We were told definitely the other side, I call it Cam Common side, was owned by Dorset Council. Now we understand it's not owned by Dorset Council, so we don't know whether it's owned by Dorset Council. So
How does it help?
A movable feast, to say the least.
Do you, is there anything you feel that we can help you with? Do you need our support in any way?
We would very much welcome your support, and if we could all work together on this.
And in what, sorry, and in what practical way could we support you, do you, in your estimation?
Well, I think if we get together quietly and discuss it all the way through and link in, because if you're ever going to get a bypass, it will link in with a bypass from us.
Yeah.
And we do rather feel that if they do what they're proposing to do, what with Dorset Council and Simon Hall proposing to do, we aren't going to get a bypass. And you aren't going to get a bypass. And even our neighbours, like well, Donhead, they're going to suffer with traffic in years to come as well. Because I don't know formally about the council, but unofficially, having talked to some of the people up there, they're fed up with the big heavy lorries doing Dennis Lane and Donhead Hollow.
Yeah. John?
I would just propose that we do put it on the agenda as soon as possible, because I think it does affect us. I think it's important, and I think we should make our views known.
Okay, do I have a seconder? Bill? Okay, everyone like to take a vote on that? All in favour?
Thank you very much.
Okay, so that will go on to when's our next planning and highways?
We do in December. Usually it's just a planning application one, but depending on the number of applications, this could go in as early as December. The only thing that I would ask for is some sort of direction for the report. What is it that you're wanting to achieve? What's the outcome you're anticipating from that? Just to help me shape the report.
Okay.
But you don't have to do that now. We can discuss that.
Yeah, okay.
Just to Mary, just to back it up, what I hope to be lost here from the end of December to mid-February.
Right.
Visas committee.
Okay, well, fingers crossed for you, David.
I bought the airline tickets, and they were quite expensive.
Okay.
I will be treated.
Lovely. Thank you so much, David. Thank you very much indeed. Tim?
Can I just ask David a quick question? Have you got a highways officer contact who has been dealing with you, or is this just sort of somewhere in the highways department?
Somewhere in the highways department.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll see if behind there was
You'll see what we get work out.
Super. David, thank you very much indeed. Right, so license review. The license review is on next Tuesday, the 9th of November. And people can watch that on Dorset Council's YouTube channel.
Has anybody actually had links through?
No.
I'd like to speak, and I've not had an acknowledgement back.
Right. Oh, interesting. Well, we put in our, we put it in too late. Apparently, we should have put it in by the 18th of October had we wanted to speak, and we didn't realise that. We thought it was the 2nd of November. But clearly, the 2nd of November was only for officers, and that, I presume so. So,
sorry, they didn't give me that information. I passed you exactly what I gave to you.
And John suspects that that's possibly because they don't want hordes of people for and against speaking and all that kind of thing. So probably just a natural level of obfuscation.
Chairman, sorry, I gathered that we should have. Thank you. I gather that it should have been that we, if you like, took sufficient of an interest in the case that we made a representation to them by that date.
Right.
And then to be actually present to deliver it needed to go by today. So it's the fact that we had not presented a case effectively.
Okay. Well, we did put in our statement at the very least.
If I can just reassure committee that the representation this committee made from the last committee meeting did go into Dorset Council, so they have that, and I have reiterated that that is this council's corporate view and that they should be taking that forward. It's just that there was no additional views that I needed to make in person.
Okay, thank you. Now, I'm just kind of looking, because Enmore Court is such a big sort of beefy thing to discuss. Do we think that we should go through other items and then leave Enmore Court?
Enmore Court's on the agenda as well, so you've got that at the last item.
Yeah.
If it depends on how you feel about the timings of everything else.
What's that, John? Yeah, I'm just kind of thinking, Christie's Lane, also a lot to discuss there. What? Yeah, Well, no, I think let's just crack on. I think let's just do Emerald Court. So, I just want to do a little overview about all the different things that we have been, follow my own advice. Sensitive. There we go.
Sorry, Chair, we're doing item 8 now.
Yes. Yeah, so it's in, obviously, it's in officers' report as item 4.2.2, and so see report 8, but, you know, quite a few people are here to discuss it, so I think it just makes sense to do that now. We had the barrister's report, which we commissioned, and we haven't had a chance as a committee to discuss it since we received it. Charlotte and Nicholas had a presentation, which they have decided not to do, but that had been a particular angle going forward. We looked at, you know, could we beef up the neighbourhood plan? How quick would that be? What are the criteria for doing it and so forth, so that we have made inquiries about that. We've looked at extending the conservation area, knowing that this doesn't deal with the issue at hand. This, you know, that wouldn't deal with Emerald Court, but in terms of what else could we do to protect the slopes? And so we have been in touch with Hannah Smith about who we would have to talk to for that and what their views would be and what would need to be done. So then also you've seen the response from the planning consultant regarding her views on that. And then the last thing that I have personally been looking at, and I haven't actually discussed it with anyone, but we will discuss it this evening, is that what was highlighted, and all of this is because it was highlighted from the barrister's report. And we did say at the outset that whether it was effective, and we knew it was a bit of a long shot, it would at least be educational and we would learn from it. And certainly, I think, so the last thing I was looking at is that, you know, the reason that the planning inspector was able to push this through for affordable homes is because we hadn't allocated in the neighbourhood plan any land specifically for affordable homes. And, you know, we all know the issues with Shaftesbury. I mean, it's not as if we have loads of brownfield sites that immediately spring to mind. However, I thought, okay, you know, and I don't know how you actually go about allocating land when you don't own it and it's not vacant, but if it was, so, you know, the old ATS site, I mean, I know that's got a current planning application on it, you know, the current ambulance station. I mean, yes, it's perfectly positioned for that hospital, but it's not perfectly positioned for the whole of town. The fire station, which combined with the old glove factory, this is all just ideas I had, but things that have finished, Karen, and I'll come to you in a second. So these were just things that I was thinking about and that I wanted to discuss here because, you know, if you relocated the ambulance station and the fire station to the land south of the A30, and you freed up those central areas in the middle of town where it would be perfect to have affordable housing and people with restricted means wouldn't need to have a car to possibly get to work and so forth, and they would have access to buses. That would be ideal. And obviously that is complicated and not easy, but all up for discussion. So those are all the different things which, between us discussing it and my thinking on my own, we've come up with. So the barrister's report. Karen, you wanted to say something?
Yes, so I'm afraid, Virginia, I actually disagreed with quite a lot of the comments that you made there. I think that within Shaftesbury, there's been so many housing developments, and the housing developments within Shaftesbury, and they are for a substantial number of houses. So if you look at Persimmon, 700 houses, on average it's 30% affordable. Parcel 1 and 2 was 80% affordable. Barrett's, when it was originally signed off, was 15% affordable. That's now gone up to 30% affordable. Little Down, my understanding, that's 30% affordable. So I'd like to quite clearly state, in my opinion, and I've been actually tracking this for years, the affordable housing figure that an officer sent to the solicitors for Nilo's development were made up figures. They were made up figures of 660 affordable housing. I have no idea where they got those figures from. And if you go through what the barrister has said, I thought the barrister's report was extremely clear, where we as a town council have shot ourselves in the foot. So the first place is page 27 of the neighbourhood plan. Now, I did actually put in quite a lot of complaints about it being wishy-washy, nebulous. The planning policies were not clearly defined. The planning policy should have actually stated for a settlement boundary that under no circumstances should any houses be built outside of the settlement boundary, because Shaftesbury as a town has met its quota. It has met the quota that was defined in the local plan. And we know that North Dorset District Council actually approved that virtually the whole quota that was in the local plan. They approved all of the planning applications. From what I remember, it was 2015, 2016, 2017, and it was no breathing capacity to absorb, get any infrastructure, get the S106 over, etc. They just signed it all off because, as we know as a council, everybody seems to like developing houses in Shaftesbury. We are easy meat, and we are becoming easier meat because no one is contesting what Dorset Council are doing on the affordable housing. So page 27, nebulous and wishy-washy, and it shouldn't have been. You've got quite a lot you actually had quite a lot of complaints about how nebulous it was from the open spaces. I was involved in all of that. The next place that the town council has shot itself in the foot is page 91.
Well, what happened at page 27?
Page 27 is the settlement boundary.
Right, okay.
When the statements that were made for the settlement boundary were not concrete. They were not saying you should not build outside the settlement boundary. And I know that I put in a complaint about it, and I know other people put in a complaint about it, and it was not taken on board. And the barrister has actually stated this. The barrister has actually stated page 27. You look at number 19, at page 27, for example, it is acknowledged that the settlement boundary is not a firm barrier to development. There was so much feedback that came back to the town council to say that needs to be concrete. You need to say quite clearly, do not build outside the settlement boundary. And all of this stuff about affordable housing, this Enmore Court has been approved on one situation only, and it's based on this apparent acute need for 660 affordable houses from this one officer that's gone direct to a solicitor for the Nilo's development, and it's been unchallenged. It's been unchallenged by us as a council, because I put a line right through that. And it's been unchallenged by any councillor within Dorset Council. It has not, there was not one bit of scrutiny on how that person had derived the numbers. If you look at the numbers on page 91, which were signed off in 2021, weren't they? They were signed off this year. It's actually claiming that Dorset Council was saying that the number of houses, affordable houses, that were urgently required within Shaftesbury was 215. When I was last on the town council, because we actually scrutinised what was going on, the only allocation of affordable housing that was found to be genuine was the gold one, and that's 24. When we started looking at what all of these other people were on the housing register, they were bogus claims. They were flawed. Anybody can put their name onto this housing register, but it doesn't mean that we as a town or we as a town council should accept what a person down in Dorchester's doing with someone ringing up saying, hey, I need a house, I need an affordable house, and it's just not quantified or qualified or challenged. And I will actually carry on to say that the last time I was on the town council, we got Stuart Corndall, who was the monitoring officer, to come to Shaftesbury and tell us where had all of the affordable housing gone to. He had to prove to this town council that this was a housing register, and this is where these people in Shaftesbury got these affordable houses. And you know what? He could not do that. He could not validate that the affordable housing had gone to people in Shaftesbury. Now, I'm getting told that all of the 30% affordable housing that has been built and put in the market at Littledown has not gone to locals in Shaftesbury. So what's going on? We've got a Dorset council officer that's making up figures. We've got their approving planning applications on the back of these affordable housing, and they're actually, it looks like they're giving them to people from anywhere, and there's no validation. So it's about time we actually got Dorset Council here. And I personally would rip up those figures. That person, that officer that sent 660 to this solicitor,
Yeah.
the inspector, that is what he's taken as evidence, and he's actually said there is an acute need for affordable housing in Shaftesbury. What a load of BS. Where's the acute need? You show us the housing register. You show us how they're allocating these houses to these people in Shaftesbury, and I tell you, there will not be a match. And
Okay, so Karen,
the
got
reason
to
why
wind it
this
up
is
now.
coming on
Yeah.
is because developers can build houses in Shaftesbury.
Okay.
So
Karen, there is a
really-
lot to discuss this evening. I'm really sorry to interrupt you there, but you've made your point. You've made some very good points, and I've heard you. Phil?
If the inspector took his position based on incorrect information,
Yeah.
that surely is a point that is possible to go back and question, because it clearly is based on a lie. And that can't be good law.
No, I mean, I, in fact, I did put a request in to find out about what was the situation with the housing register for affordable homes and so forth. And this came through, I only read it this afternoon, actually. So 229 in Shaftesbury, 1,200 in total in North Dorset. That's the North Dorset housing register. So yeah, gold about 28.
That is not what that is.
Well, clearly not.
If you look, because I went through everything, absolutely everything. If you look at what Nilo produced, they're compiled as grounds for appeal. There is an email from a Dorset Council officer that actually states that there are 660 affordable houses needed for Shaftesbury.
And it didn't say on there who the officer was?
Yes, it did.
Oh, okay. So that's on the Nilo Homes application, is it?
It's on their grounds for appeal. He sent it directly to a Nilo solicitor.
Right, okay. Phil? Sorry, I'm so sorry, Josh. You had your, okay.
I would wholeheartedly support.
Can you, your voice is quite light, so yeah.
I would wholeheartedly support contacting Dorset Council as a body and make a corporate decision to demand that these figures are clarified and justified. The whole business of where the figures came from sounds very, very suspect. And the longer they're silent about it, the more suspect we get. And the other aspect of it is it sounds as though the process is completely wrong if this officer in Dorset Council sends an email like that to the developer. So we don't even see it.
Yes.
Now that's so wrong, I don't know where to start describing it.
It went to his solicitor.
To the,
It went to the solicitor.
Nilo
There was
Holmes' solicitor.
To the inspector.
so,
There was no scrutiny, nothing.
so it's a backroom
No check
decision.
and balances,
okay.
nothing.
So there's obviously something very wrong. And
Very wrong.
we have to call them out and not just request a meeting. We need to demand an explanation for what is obviously, they've got a lot of explaining to do to prove that it's not a miscarriage of justice.
Okay, excellent. Well, good point made. So John has proposed that we request a meeting with Dorset Council to discuss this particular piece of information.
I think it has to be stronger than that. We've been requesting meetings with them for 12 months and they don't answer. So it has to be a demand and it has to be in published.
Absolutely.
We're not getting anywhere otherwise.
They need to come here, they need to produce the housing register, they need to stand up and say why all of these affordable housing have been built in Shaftesbury. Who have they gone to? They've got to prove that they're to people in Shaftesbury. And if they're not people in Shaftesbury, they've got an awful lot of explaining to do. And also, the other thing is that there have been houses built in Shaftesbury. There has been no affordable housing. There has been affordable housing contributions. I cannot work out where about 300 grand has gone. So there's houses that are being built. There are developers that are paying for affordable housing. I've gone through absolutely everything and I've asked so many questions. Who has got that 300 grand? Because we know back in 2014 on 15, we know that 70 grand that went from the S106 for affordable housing went from Shaftesbury to another village outside this town. We tracked that down. We said, you shouldn't be building houses here to benefit places outside this town. And the other side of it, if you look at the stats with how they compile the affordable housing, and I've challenged the officer, and his name's Philip Reed, he's got some very strange way of compiling statistics. He does not account for affordable housing. So he goes around and says, well, I know the houses have been built and we know you've been giving affordable housing contributions, but you still haven't done affordable housing. You haven't built a house. I mean, well, that's not our fault. They've approved a planning application where they've let the developer build things without affordable housing. So do we have to draw a line and we have to start there? We really have to push back.
Okay, got it. So, so you are proposing that we request an urgent meeting. How do you want to word it, John?
Well, I personally think we should demand. I think we should demand a meeting, and
do other people have their?
Okay, it's on there.
See you there.
Lovely.
We should demand a meeting, and we should demand it in public, because we've been requesting meetings for months and we don't get any answers. So we've got to start somewhere, and I think we need to do a press release to say that this is what we want to happen. And we expect to see the appropriate officers answering some serious questions, which makes it sound as though there's some serious malpractice. So
right, okay.
Pick out what you want of that.
Okay, okay.
The essence, I think, is demand, and
Okay.
demand public.
Yeah, okay. Do we have a seconder? Phil seconds. Go to the vote. How many people in favour of calling for this meeting?
Unanimous.
Unanimous?
Can we have ask for a panel of because last time it was about 3 or 4 of them and there really needs to be, I can't remember the name of the second name of this guy, his first name's Paul, but I will find out, I'll let everybody know who the person is that's doing this, as far as I'm concerned, making up the affordable housing figures. And so we need to have a panel, and we really need to scrutinise the whole the affordable housing, the housing register. We need to have the process. I cannot find anywhere what process they're going through. And I asked Philip Rees for that process, and he just ignored my email.
They do.
I would love to know what is the definition of affordable housing.
Well, indeed, I mean
that's in this Barrister's report.
Can I say, out of interest, as you have been tracking it for so long, do you know how many affordable homes have been built across the main estates? And do we know if there are any ones that haven't been taken up? That is to say that we have, do we have spare capacity in terms of affordable homes? Do we have that information?
It would be in the latest data, accurate data, is in something that's called an annual monitoring report, and it's always produced a year after. So that's the starting point, and then you build up the stats from there. And no one in Dorset Council will have any better data than that, because so the annual monitoring report is produced around about, this time it was quite late, I think it came out March time, but it's for last year. And then you look at how many houses have been built and you estimate for that development what the percentage is.
And the other thing I'm wondering is, you know, say for instance on the Maltings, a lot of the affordable homes have been sold to housing associations. What kind of what influence does anybody have on these housing associations in terms of who they allocate them to?
I would say 0, but I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean, the whole thing
but then
is,
that's the problem, isn't it? Because there are so many houses owned by housing associations, and if nobody can police them, you know, it's very difficult to know, isn't it?
Well, I think to go back to what actually happened, because people were suspecting something that was very, very, very wrong that was going on with all of these affordable housing being built in Persimmons, that was why Stuart Cornwall had to come to Shaftesbury. And people knew that, I know that there were lots of rumours going around that they're coming up from Weymouth and coming down from Manchester, etc. But he could not prove that the affordable housing that had been built had gone to anyone from Shaftesbury, even local to Shaftesbury.
Well, I do think that's something we also need to ask Dorset Council, is if these properties are then sold onto housing associations, is there any influence that either at a town or a county level?
The point I was making was Littledown is not even selling them first hand to anyone in Shaftesbury, from what I understand. So there's.
But are they selling them to a housing association if they're not?
No, they're selling them to people as affordable housing.
Right.
So, but they don't. They're not local.
Okay. Yes, we've got to move on.
I'm just thinking that the conversations are valid, but you've passed the vote, so it's something you can have as councillors and then feed in for the letter.
Thank you, Claire. Thank you very much. Okay, so we're just going to have to wrap it up there, and obviously this one has legs and will go on, and we will be talking about it on a regular basis. So Shooters Lane, all that I have to say on that front, I have chased that up. Tomorrow, Dorset Rangers are having a meeting with the owner of the wall to organise a timeline for its repair. I did ask them whether or not Dorset Council would be affecting the repair and then looking to be reimbursed by the owner, and they said no, they were expecting the owner to do it themselves. So that's where we are with it, Michelle, and we will be looking for an update from that meeting as soon as we can. All right? Yeah. Come back to nerve plan applications. Right, Christie's Lane, beech trees. Tim, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. The latest now is that we will have a meeting with Dorset Highways tree officers yourself, Chairman of the Open Spaces Group, myself and Claire. This will be in the middle of next week until people get back to me specific dates that they can make. It's a little bit open-ended. However, they have everybody has given their agreement that they will get together, and I say that the middle of next week is the most common date to work out firstly where we are going to put the new trees. Bernie's plan, I had a look at with you.
Yes, we were looking at it earlier, Bernie.
Yes.
Your plan is
Yes.
basically detailed. Thank you very much indeed for putting that together.
It's an option you've got.
It's not just
But principle
Yes.
that we need a replacement on that site and not off site. Absolutely. That we don't go for Somerset Beach, which are risky. We go for smaller stock, and we also go for a continuous hedge because of the aeration views into the sun.
Yeah. Now, I just want to say, I think this is absolutely excellent, and I think that, you know, doing it much like a planning application where you have existing, you know, what stood before, what's been done, and that's so clear. That's fantastic. Yeah, really good. The one thing I would ask Bernie, because I think one thing we've learned from the Nick Ellis report is that, you know, there wasn't enough detail in there, and we just didn't make sure that all the angles were covered. So let's not make the mistake this time. We want to make full use of this meeting. So is there any way you can do any costings for us?
I think I'm looking towards Phil. I mean, I can use some options because obviously the costings have to relate to the
Yeah. Do you have quantities? Because obviously we
I can
could.
work out quantities, but they are a function of the plant size.
Yeah.
Because for a hedge, we don't want to plant small saplings. We want larger stock. We want to double staggered row, and we need to talk to a nursery. For example, options are very good on the larger stock, more expensive stock. They're the bees' knees. So I think we might need to talk to another nursery.
And Paramount, you were talking about Paramount plants for trees, weren't you? They're very good. I've used them. Yeah.
I think if I can just pick up on what Nick Ellis said. The trees, starting point negotiation is £25,000 each, but they destroyed £75,000 worth of trees. Now,
That's the option.
Okay.
But we're looking at costings, and I'm just answering that point.
Yeah. Hang on a minute, Tim. Sorry.
So even if we're very reasonable, we say, right, let's not say 75,000, let's say 30,000. Where we are is that beech trees won't transplant semi-mature if they're too big. And we know from the trees in the car park that one was planted small, one was planted semi-mature, and they've caught up. So planting a very big tree actually doesn't help in the long term. What Barshams have, they're in the Cambridge and Ely, they're quite hardy trees that they have available. They have a tree that's about 5 or 6 meters high. That's not big in terms of semi-mature. Those trees aren't huge anyway. So those trees are about £900 plus VAT. And if we put 3 of those in to replace the 3 that are missing, the highway requirement is that there should be 2 for 1 replacement. My suggestion, which I've been discussing with Bernard, is that if we take a pragmatic view and we say that we put in the 3 semi-mature trees to get ourselves back to where we are, that we then should tot up the number of trees, and the difference from 102, which is the Queen Mother's death age, we should get that number of trees. And if those are small ones that we put in, brilliant. There's a cost to put them in, there's a cost to buy them. But those trees are about £160 each, which are they're a decent size, little widths. And I think that would, we totted that up, and it could be something like 25,000. So we're not asking for something unreasonable.
Yeah.
What it does mean is that if we could get the county to agree to that project plan, And we can then, Lidl put their name to it, and then they can say, we made a mistake, but we're rectifying it, and we're making up Queen Mother's Avenue to 102, and I think it's a win-win all round.
Yes.
Well, I think you have considerably more faith in Lidl's understanding of public relations than I do. But anyway, we live in hope. Tim, did you want to say something?
Yes, well, I did want to just caveat everything that I've said with the fact that this is not our land, it is Highways land. This is a starting point and a very good starting point. I don't want everybody to think that this is exactly what is going to happen because as we have found over the last few months, county do have the final say on what goes into their land. But we should be if we can put together as detailed a plan as possible, fully costed, if that is possible, with some options about a very good suggestion there from Councillor Proctor of using the opportunity to do something that wasn't thought of at the time, then we can shape the argument in the community's favour and get Highways buy-in. I think, to be honest, we will be getting Highways buy-in anyway, but I wouldn't want to say absolutely that what is proposed is going to happen. But we must do as much as we can. And then ongoing again is the planting of the hedging.
Yes.
Which I would absolutely agree with you. There was hedging there to begin with, which unfortunately has been taken out, ripped out, whether that's by permission or not. We've got to make sure that what we do is on our side of the land, whatever Lidl do on their side of the land, we can only comment on, and yeah, that is up to them. But let's do as much as we can at that meeting. So, Chairman of Open Spaces, Chairman of Roads, Chairman of Highway, Planning and Highways, and a tree officer from.
I don't know. Am I going?
Great. No, it's been kept really small so that we can really get to the nub of it all. So Tim, thank you very much for making that point. I think the key thing is that the more detail we give Highways, the easier we make it for them, the more likely they are to go with the flow. So
I think, to be honest, Highways will go with the flow from the music that I've got from them.
Great. Okay.
If we can bring somebody from enforcement as well to just look at the obvious issues that have been raised on the little side of the boundary. If there are any outstanding enforcement issues that we believe haven't been addressed, should be addressed, then we can bring that up at that meeting too. So if there's many people feed in through whatever organisation that they represent, be it council, open spaces, country group, then those can go on the table too.
Great.
Can I make it clear whether I'm invited to this meeting or not? Because I have done a considerable amount of work on this in detail. Bernard's expertise.
Yes, I understand that. I mean, I'm not organising the meeting, and it was explained to me that it's just the chair of each relevant organisation who will then feed it in. So if you don't feel comfortable that John can explain this.
Well, doesn't need to be there. Bernie should be there. I'm afraid, John, with great respect to John, yes, the chair. I'm actually chair of the tree group, which is actually more relevant.
Tim, up to you.
I'm sorry, I wasn't aware of that. When I spoke to John Legworth, I spoke to him as chairman of the Open Spaces and Tree Group. That's what on the website is currently there. But if you come along in his stead, or you both come along, yes, what I don't want to do is make Highways feel that they are being
ganged up on,
and because they are working on our side, they are absolutely working on the side of the community and not the side of the contractor who caused the problems in the first place.
If you're worried that I might.
No, I'm not. That's why it's not a public meeting.
Which I did, like the colleagues in the Highways Department the other day. I've got facts, if, and I can demonstrate, and Richard and I are putting together a report with these facts, but that will follow that is why we see it happen and why we should avoid it in the future, but that's another thing. The point is, you just mentioned about other matters of non-compliance with planning. There is one, there are several, but there is one which is glaring, and that is the planning application shows and actually specifies some proprietary tree protection barriers. They simply weren't installed. It was impossible to install. And I have to say, and I'm repeating myself, that the proximity of the car park on the other side on one and the segregated footway and cycleway on the other, they conspired to cause it. So Dorset Council Highways, I would say, actually owe us. But I'm not going to be accusatory. I just want a positive outcome for the town.
Well, I'm just, not up to me, Bernie, but I'm very happy for you to be there instead of John. It's more a question of numbers rather than who attends, and clearly it's important. Karen?
Yeah, I'd like to clarify that John Parker has actually stepped down from being the chair, and I would also, because you know he's asked to step down.
Yeah.
And I would like to say that as far as I'm concerned, it should be banned.
Yeah, well, not a
And I
problem.
think that we, the committee, should actually have control. Nobody should tell us who it should be, so I'm saying I'd like to vote for Bernie.
Well, I don't even know, well, if people feel they need to vote for Bernie, I'll just, okay, right.
Second it.
Yeah.
Okay, so the proposal is what exactly? What are we voting for? We need to word it.
Well, whatever team you were saying,
It's fine, it's just something for Tim to take forward.
Yeah.
I'm conscious of
Right,
time,
yeah,
we're at 8:15, but I know that Bernard had got these 4 drawings to share as part of this discussion. Have you got time, Chair, to?
Well, you tell me. I have no idea what the time is. I mean,
It's 8:15.
I'm
still
hoping. I mean, to be honest, there are only 2. In my estimation, 2 planning. I mean, most of it we can just pass through. There's only 2 things really that people might want to discuss. So,
okay.
In which case,
Madam Chairman, all I'd like to do is just point out the sequence.
Yes.
And you've talked about how it can, but the first drawing is, as it states, what the original avenue comprised. So that's the largely continuous with some breaks avenue. The second one.
Yes. The second one is as existing. Yeah.
That shows the gaps. The 2 trees fell in the entrance, which had planning permission, and then the 3 trees further along to the north, which we lost for various reasons. So that's the situation we have at the moment, and I'd like to clarify that the planting currently undertaken by Lidl is fully within their planning.
Yes.
Application and approved planning. It's for low level ground cover planting along the interface of the car park up to the highway boundary, which is really right on the call it the crest. It was actually quite a ridge, but it's surrounded crest now. That's the highway boundary, and they've also planted 1 tree in the gap. That's the next drawing.
That drawing?
In fact, going back to that, the previous, can we just go back to the previous one? So I just wanted, on your drawing, Bernard, that new tree that they've planted, looked to me just by eye to be on our side, as it were, of the dividing line. And indeed, you have it there as being on our side of that. What have they planted?
They've planted, I say, a medium-sized beech tree. It's right, I looked at it yesterday, it seems to be right in the middle of the available green strip, which is about 5 metres wide.
So we're going to have to plant hedging either side of it.
Yes, I think this is an important point that where there is a beach, a replacement beach like that, that we need to say plant some poly which is shade tolerant, but also either side of it. So what it would be it would have a scatter of larger beech trees within a mixed, largely native hedge. And where we have a larger beech tree, we just stick to privet foliage, and then the other open areas. Hawthorn, field maple, and hazel, which can be.
Yeah, should we go to the next? So here we are, this is your last. Okay, so sorry, we've gone on that now to as proposed, Bernie, this is your as proposed drawing, yeah.
The third one is proposing that there should be this continuous hedge to which I've just referred, both along the current interface to the car park, but also continuing on the other side of the entrance. I would propose in relation to the, call it reserve site, which we don't know about. That is our proposal, and that specifies the species which we would take. So it's largely on the crest of the, or middle of the open space strip, but with a bias toward the highway land, mostly on the highway land. So we need their approval with regard to maintenance, and the intention would be not to let it free grow, but to have it managed properly, which is an implication for the highways.
Just to pick up that exact point that Bernie made there, I have already spoken to planning and to ask the question that given the breaches in the planning application that have already occurred and brought us to this situation, where do we stand legally with encroaching on Little's land to replant what should go in to mitigate the damage? And the verbal indication that I get at the moment is that because the damage was caused by the contractor in breach of the application, then there won't be any legal challenge, or there may be, but a legal challenge could be easily dismissed in encroaching slightly on Little's land to plant bigger trees, because the roots will straddle. Well, they will in the boundary.
Yes.
So
yes.
So yeah, I've preempted the obvious question.
Okay.
So there we are. Do you need me to stay around for the Emerald Court discussion?
We just had the Emerald Court discussion, Tim. Yeah, that was it. So no. Thank you very much. Thank you. Right. Okay, so this might be okay. So do we need to discuss this potential road?
No,
no. Okay. Right. So can we
okay.
We need to. Oh, okay. Good to see you. Bye.
Don't need to vote on that, it's just to receive and note. We've taken their actions away, so planning applications.
Planning applications, shall we just? So, land at Winkham Lane. Amendments to the improved scheme for Winkham Lane to compromise an additional fourth arm to the approved roundabout in order to. Oh, David, staying with us, that's very nice. Right, could I just ask members of the public if they could just keep it down a little bit so we can carry on discussing? Yeah, so obviously this is the Barrett's Home development and they want to enlarge their roundabout from 3 to 4 entrance and exits. Yes, quite. Does anybody have any things they want to say about it? No, great. Okay, I suggest no comment. Yeah.
I think it was we when we looked at it last time said there should be another entrance. So they've actually listened to us maybe in that respect. So we should be grateful for that.
Lovely. Well, I'm happy to propose. Lovely. All those in favour, thank you.
No comment, thank you.
Next, erection of agricultural barn, Paynes Place Farm, New Road. I propose no objection.
Seconded.
Seconded,
Full house?
unanimous, thank you.
Thank you.
Right, if it's too quick.
So we're now on 5.2.3, Sarah. So erection of garden shed, this is a retrospective for a garden shed that no one can see from the road and is surrounded by white. So I would say no objection. So
Phil's proposal was
oh, I'm
first.
so sorry. Sorry, I didn't hear you say I propose. So do we have a seconder or no objection?
No comment.
All those in favour?
Thank you. Karen seconded. Oh, she was the first card. I
Right,
saw.
5.2.4, erect replacement band hall. This is for the
So
silver
that
band
covers
hall.
both of those, the listed building and the retrospective.
Okay, so does anyone have any comments about the silver band hall?
We last time discussed it, we supported it. I don't, have to be reminded why it's back here again.
I can explain.
Lovely, yes, by all means.
It came to us first because it's we own the land, they own the buildings, so they sought our permission before they put the planning in. Now this is the planning application back into us.
Thank you. Yes, I remember that.
So, well, I propose that we support it.
Yeah.
Seconded by Karen. All those in favour, full house. Right, so let's leave that till last. Let's just quickly go to 5.2.6, Sarah.
Okay, so
This is 2 Edwards Close. So we had 3 Edwards Close last time, so much like Imber Road, they're all at it. So we'll have the rest of St Edwards Close in the coming months. Anyway, so here we go. They want to erect, they're making the most of their bungalow. So erect single side-storey side and rear extensions, erect pitched roof over a garage. Does anyone have any comments to make on this? No. Okay. I propose no objection. Seconded, Karen. All those in favour?
unanimous.
Now, so, oh, lovely. Nice to see you, Bernard. Thanks so much. 5.2.5, erection of a freestanding tree house to be used as a holiday let and associated works.
Question.
Yeah.
Where's the tree?
I suggest we can't take this any further for the simple reason there isn't a conservation officer's report.
Right.
And I think where it is, this conservation officer's report is fundamental to understanding what we're going to be, what we have to decide on.
I can help you with that,
Oh,
I'm afraid,
thank you.
because
Please do.
there is an anomaly in that little tiny section of the slopes is not in a conservation area. And some of my best friends live virtually next door to this house, and so that's how I know that it's very odd. It starts a bit further down on Breach Lane. It ends roughly where just the beginning of Breach Lane off Raspberry Lane, and then there's this whole little section that is not in a conservation area.
But I do note on the application, on the papers, that the request has gone to the conservation officer for a report, but
I mean, you know, certainly gosh, what can I say? I mean, it's very innovative of them, but you know, I mean, it certainly would be very intrusive for all the houses on Umbers Hill.
So if I just share this conservation area now. So the blue dots are the conservation area, so you can see the bite out of that zone.
And so basically so where Umbers Hill goes off in that white strip, so it's actually the little lane right at the junction, come a bit further back there. That track to the right is a single track, so you couldn't drive to. So it's very narrow, and then the house in the rear. So let's go just get a bit further over, Claire. Let's just double check this.
About as far as I can zoom in.
Okay, so that looks very much like their garage is in the conservation area and their house isn't. But
Can I hazard the suggestion that the conservation area was defined after the estate was built, so they wrapped it round? Because they wouldn't have been allowed to build that there nowadays, if it had all been a continuous tract of land. So I don't know when the conservation area was defined, but I mean, those houses, I mean, it's a suburban estate of bungalows, so you can't make that any worse. And I would think the only, sorry, somebody lived there.
No, not at all. I just,
So I would say the only problem is whether they overlook anybody, and that I don't know about.
they do.
If they overlook, then there is a loss of privacy, which is an issue. But in terms of whether it's a conservation area or not, I would say it's academic.
Well, I don't know.
It's
I mean,
not
it butts right onto.
Well, yes, it does, absolutely, yeah.
Area.
Both at the rear and
And,
the side,
and
yeah.
you've got, you know, St Edward's there. You know, you've got a number of important points. I think Conservation Officer's report needs to be taken into account. I mean, it may be, again, that it's academic because the view of the committee is not to support the application anyway.
Well, I mean, I, you know, personally, I think it would, you know, the tree house, looking at all the drawings and
Do you want to go back to the drawings?
elevations, yes, why not? I've seen, and then what's the next one? There's one I've seen from the side with trees and so forth.
I have had the pleasure of staying in a treehouse in France, and the French are really big on these. There are a lot of tree houses scattered around France. They're nowhere near the size of that. I mean, they just aren't.
Yeah.
That is massive. And I wonder if it actually is a tree house or intended to be a tree house or intended to be something else. It just is. I mean, you look at the inside, you've got sort of separate bedroom, separate bathroom, you know, kitchen, God knows what else, you know, it's.
Well, it is sort of open.
It's colossal.
It's a kind of open plan, so one leads through to the
Very
other.
open plan.
So the bedroom is in the living room and so on and so forth, but then you have that huge decking area, which obviously is there to be used to look at the view, so you're looking directly over everyone enjoying their gardens beneath. So I think that's hugely intrusive for starters.
This is on the main slopes below Castle Hill. This is a complete nonsense. This is not in the tree. A tree house, by definition, is a house in the trees. It's normally a children's thing. This is vast.
Yeah,
it's on the slopes. Trees are being felled to create it. It's got overlooking problems. I just think this is a serious objection case.
The other thing, again, go back to the French tree houses, is that they tend to be ecos. So there is no electricity and no running water. You have a jug, sink, and a chemical.
Stop there. Too much information.
I mean, that is wired and plumbed in like a normal house.
Yes, absolutely. So, I mean, well, I totally take your point about it being, you know, on the slopes, Phil, and I think, you know, we must be consistent in our objections. So, well, in that case, Phil, would you like to word an objection? Do you want to propose an objection? And
it's in terms of principle, it's clearly on the slopes policy. It is in close proximity to,
as defined in the local plan. Yeah.
It's in close proximity to the conservation area. It's in proximity to St Edward's Chantry listed building. It's very large. Trees are being lost to create it. It seems inconsistent with the description trees.
Yeah.
It's not a house that's supported by trees, which is, I would have thought, a definition of tree house.
Yeah.
Other exceptions?
Yes, it has no.
It's not what a tree house is. It's something you put not in.
Yeah. Anyway, come on. Yeah. And overlooking, and a loss of privacy for all the residents of Umpers Hill.
Loss of residential amenity and access. Because it's that little lane, I know the lane you mean.
Yeah.
And if there was an emergency requiring emergency services up there, I'm not quite sure how easy it is for them to access. So I think there are a number of reasons.
Yes.
And I'm checking you raised Airbnb last few meetings about things.
Well, yeah, but they have said as a holiday let. I mean, they're out there, they're loud and proud. So, you know, we don't have to.
This must be at least 3 or 4 times the size of those other ones that we were concerned about as Airbnbs.
Well, the thing is, I think we should say though, that we've got to kind of get a little perspective here. We can't say no to anything just because it might be a holiday let. There's nothing wrong with holiday lets. We've all enjoyed them. Let's calm down there. It's just that certainly where it's in very tight,
I mean,
highly
it's a wonderful
residential areas.
design,
you know.
and if it was in a tree somewhere else, it'd be great.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Right, so
Yeah.
have you got
I've-
Phil's
I've
objection?
got Phil's objection, so we need a seconder and one vote.
I second that. Can we all vote on that? All those in favour? Unanimous. Right. Is there anything else that we need to discuss? I think.
Hold on.
Yes, so
The street marking pedestrian.
so hang on a minute. Oh, I see, that's along here. Proposed road closure on Bimport St John's. Well, I think, to be honest, that, you know, Richard sort of covered everyone's thoughts on that very effectively at the beginning.
Is it the case that they're shutting it to through traffic so that the few vehicles that are coming in for access, as into the hospital, can be managed while they're doing the work? So I suspect that's the way they could treat it.
In the same as I said to Richard at the beginning, I don't know any more than what Dorset Council have said, only that it is unusual for them to come to us so far in advance and ask for our comments. So what I would suggest the committee does is return that with, these are the things we want to make sure remain in place or are mitigated.
Yeah.
The Chair, the recommendations committee resolves to support the request from Dorset Council. I think I'd like to say that I would like to propose that we, at this moment in time, do not support the request because we have insufficient information regarding primarily station and
the
access-
hospital.
and the hospital and to nursing homes in the area. There are significant, we don't have, so we need.
And we request
reassurance
more
on that.
detailed information
We
from
request
Dorset Council.
assurance that this
Yeah.
will be managed effectively.
Okay, everyone happy with that? Yeah?
Would not object to it, provided that the appropriate steps are taken to make those places available.
No, I wouldn't support that amendment, actually.
Okay,
Yeah.
then send your proposal, but
Yeah.
rather than waiting.
I'd rather stick with that and
Okay.
then get more
Pin them down.
information from them, really.
And is there time for that? I mean, I know it's a couple of months away, but.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll have to make time. I mean,
Well, the Dorset Council will have to make time
Yeah.
for them to come back to us with information, isn't it?
I just thought it might cover.
Okay, yeah. Because otherwise it's just too much wiggle room, isn't it? And we, you know, so, good. Well,
That was your proposal.
so that was my proposal. Excellent.
Um,
Karen seconded it. Were
thank
all
you.
those in favour? I thought it was Andy's proposal anyway.
Oh, sorry, I beg your pardon. I'm sorry. I thought you said it was yours.
No, so.
I'll refer to Sarah's notes later.
Did I? Okay. Andy's proposal. Karen has seconded. All those in favour?
We're proposing not to support the resolution until Dorset Council.
Yeah, wake up in the
detailed
background.
information and how we're going to mitigate the risks, etc.
Lovely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good. Right.
And that's
Street
just-
market and pedestrianisations. Oh, God, so David, I'm sorry. Yes, I'm.
Sorry to interject, I mean, it's not normal.
Yes.
But I haven't picked up on this because our council hasn't been consulting on this.
Ah,
But it's one of the principal routes for our parishioners to access Shaftesbury,
yes.
Marsh,
Hmm.
and all that area. It's not our parishioners, it's not many people live there.
Yes.
And it's
Yes,
one of
I
our
think it is.
routes in the town.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Okay.
you know, so it's good that I picked it up here tonight, but it does need to be spread around a little bit as to who also uses that route.
Yeah. But of
The
course,
other, you got down to the Orchard and Manchester as well.
I appreciate that.
Can we send David?
But they
the
could,
details that we got on this one?
I mean, they could, you know, Cherry Orchard Lane and, you know, Coles Lane, and then they could cut through then from Twyford along Pitts Lane and come on the, yes, and wiggle through. for a short period of time. So, I mean, there are alternative routes, but I take your point that it would be inconvenient.
Yeah.
I'll send the details
Thank you,
over.
David. Okay. So street market and pedestrianisation. So some helpful member of Dorset Highway suggested that we should, for some spurious, who knows why, health and safety reason, turn all these stalls back to face the pavement, just in case there was some health and safety issue. Oh, give me strength. So I think you can guess my feeling on that one. So they've all turned around the other way as of last week. You know, the point here is that in all the time that high street has been shut, and we've had delivery drivers delivering, and we've had the market facing into the road, which everyone absolutely loves, there has not been one incident, nor have I heard of anybody saying for 1 nanosecond that they were concerned about traffic. On the contrary, we've had buses clipping people around the back of the ear. So, you know, I think Dorset Council are, you know, being somewhat hypocritical here, because, you know, where's their health and safety and risk assessment on, you know, buses in the Narrows? So, absolutely not.
The bus stop should not be driving through their student.
No.
And, the thing is, they must get their act together and work out how to sort bus stops. And we ought to have one stop point in Bell Street car park,
Yep.
preferably coming in around the back of King's Arms, copy that plan with Bree, circulate it, Sundays go to the bus operators who liked it. Bree is taking that forward, and at the other end of town, the buses should come in up Coffee Street and use the Tesco shelter fitting as a fantastic bus stop, rather than a few people using it as their private car park.
Yeah.
And I think if we did that, we then remove buses from the high street, and it makes it much easier for spontaneous closures or whatever pedestrian reason, and hopefully push forward.
No, I couldn't agree with you more. I just think it's something we absolutely have to push for. Sorry, Andy.
Yeah, I concur with everything Phil says. I think also that there are some different issues with the X2s. They are too big for this town.
They are. Yeah.
And God forbid anybody tries to bring back two-way bus traffic, because that's just.
We have two-way bus traffic.
Yes, I know, but well, yes, I meant on the Thursday, but.
Yes.
Yes. So the paper is to review the current street market and temporary event licence. I think it's quite straightforward. I don't see a problem, and I would propose a resolution that we agree that the market continues to operate face out
into the road,
and while the temporary event licence is operational.
John.
Thank you, Chair.
Sorry, but I've had a proposal and I think I'm supposed to get a seconder. Does anybody second that? Phil, thank you. John.
I wanted to ask, this business of the safety of people in the street, if we assume that it's related to buses, whose idea is it? Who has the say-so about whether buses use the high street?
Oh, John.
Because we need to find out and ask them to explain why it's so important. I can't see a justification for having buses in the high street. If there is one, can we hear it? Can we have this?
Well, I can answer this. I can actually answer this because in the course of, you know, during lockdown, when we would have weekly meetings, Zoom meetings with Dorset Highways, cycle officers, and 6 or 8 people on this Zoom meeting every week, which was super helpful actually, and very good to get to know the highways team at Dorset, who dealt with the kind of sort of, if you like, more low level, and it's not like kind of high level people. So there is a considerable bus lobby at Dorset Council, and the main thing is, it's particularly with Salisbury Reds, which obviously are operated by Wiltshire Council, and so they are spending money on our behalf, bringing people from Wiltshire into Dorset, and I don't think does the southwestern ones, they don't go to they don't link Shaftesbury to, yes they do link Shaftesbury and Gillingham. I think it's that's it. The Salisbury Reds go through the Donheads and Ludwell. They link those villages on the east side of Shaftesbury together with the Maltings, bringing people into the centre of town. And so that's not something that Dorset is paying for. And so they have said that the bus companies are absolutely insistent that buses must come through the high street so that people know that they are running. Now, whether or not bus companies, because you have said bus companies, you know, would be happy with a more kind of central location, and they can't enjoy it either. I mean, it's just a nightmare for them too. But, you know, trying to get any sense, I mean, you know, Derek Beer, our district councillor who deals with buses and so forth, is extremely pro buses, and so we're not going to get any support there, frankly. I don't mean to be rude to Derek, but he does, you know, believe passionately in buses and, you know, more buses everywhere. So,
But they're all empty.
yes, I know they're all empty, John, as we keep telling them.
And that means the buses are not run to suit the passengers.
Yes, indeed.
And therefore, what can we do in conjunction with the villages around? I think that's something we ought to be thinking about, to find out.
It's yet again,
Do
it's
people want buses?
it's another example of the work that we have to do as a council to show Dorset what needs to be done. So it's just more work we have to do that technically they should be doing, but
It would seem we have to do it.
yes. So, however, we had a proposal, we had a seconder, so can we vote on
Just remind me what the motion.
So, yeah.
To continue the market to facing out while the temporary event notice is operational.
With no reference to buses.
No, we can't bring buses in.
We
for a
have
job.
no
That's a
jurisdiction
whole-
over the buses, unfortunately.
That's a whole separate issue. All those in favour?
Thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes all of the agenda items, Chair.
That concludes the
So
meeting.
at 9:15, you can close the meeting.
Okay, it wasn't too bad. I know everyone thought they were going to be here till 10:15. but,
Thank
you
you.
know.